Hi, Mikael. Welcome to MEDICI and FinStep Asia Presents COVID and Leadership at the Time of Crisis. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us today. How about we dive straight in with an introduction about eight securities and how you've grown over the last few years?
Sure. So very simply, Eight Securities is a mobile-only investing app. We were Asia's first robo-advisor and zero-commission broker. We launched in 2012. The business has grown nicely since then, been through a number of challenges, but certainly nothing like this one.
It's been a tough time for everybody, right? How has been in these challenging times, especially you had social unrest in Hong Kong, now followed by COVID since Jan itself. How has your product been doing, considering it's digital? It's also for investment, which tends to be downward during the time of crisis.
Yeah, so, in many respects, we are fortunate to be a digital business. We're fortunate to be a mobile-only business. And, in our case, it's a bit sort of counterintuitive, but because our customers are investing, they're seeing an opportunity to invest in this market. We've seen 400% growth across all of our growth metrics, new accounts, deposits, turnover trades, since only, Q4 2019. So quarter over quarter, the growth has been very, very large.
Okay. Hey, Mikael. So how do you compare this with, the industry in general? Because when there is a crisis like this, usually people, 80-20 principle, I think people, invest less. And while digital products academically, I think everybody thinks that they should take off during a crisis like this. So between these two things, how do you see the industry doing right now?
I think, on one respect, anybody who's in sort of B2B FinTech at the moment, it's got to be incredibly hard. Sales opportunities, projects have probably ground to a halt. So I think B2B is going to be difficult. I think from a consumer perspective, digital-only businesses, from what I hear, my peers, not only in Hong Kong, but in other markets, Europe and the US, are faring quite well. So, I think this is an opportunity for digital businesses to expand and grow. I would say the one difficulty most digital businesses have, including ours, is this sort of internal battle that consumers are having is, can I trust this startup? Do I trust this startup with my money? So in some respects, incumbents are probably also succeeding because people are moving money away from neobanks or neo-brokers and potentially moving it to incumbents. So I think there's some friction now.
And from an organization perspective, what, people are working from home, there are productivity issues. Some people say productivity has gone up, some people say it has gone down. Overall, I think the way the infrastructure has been set up, is for times when, things are happening both in the physical and online world. But right now, what are the things that you have done and the changes that you are seeing in terms of productivity and other organizational things?
Well, I think ultimately we're a technology company, so people are accustomed to working at home. And we also have a young team. Most of the people are in their 20s. So I think communicating, getting business done on Slack is what we do in the office. And I know I speak for many when I say they'd probably rather have that conversation on Slack than waste time in an in-person meeting. So for us, I think there hasn't been that much impact. Now, with all of this going on in Hong Kong, we did have a period where everybody went remote, but things were, as business as usual. I think in the next 12 months, we'll probably do about $5 billion in transaction value for our clients, and there was really no impact. So being able to do that with everyone from home was also a test and one that I think we passed. So it's been good.
And what about, the compliance? And you are a licensed organization at multiple levels. You have ROs and all of these. So how have you been dealing with that, and how have been the regulatory response in some sense, or the regulators, when it comes to dealing with the compliance issues?
Yeah, I think we, in our case, we were proactive in reaching out to the regulator and telling them we're moving to a BCP plan, we're moving remote. That communication comes to our responsible officer and compliance team. So I think in that respect, it's important to be proactive. And I think as long as the regulator is aware of what we're doing, it was fine. And the SFC has been largely remote as well. So I think it's, across the industry, it's just been accepted at this time.
And, you have been a founder and the CEO of the firm for 9 years now, right? But this is probably once in a lifetime experience for quite a few people. How have you been leading this? What have been your senior management, your own, in terms of principles and philosophy while dealing with this, and how have you handled? Have you been more engaged? What have you been doing in this period?
Well, I think it has been it's challenging because as a leader, you have responsibility for that entire team, and everybody on that team is sort of accepting this in different degrees. To some, they're taking it in stride. To others, it's incredibly worrying, right? So I think as a leader, you have to see eye to eye with everyone in that organization and understanding that everybody in that organization is perceiving this and handling this very differently. So I would say in terms of challenge, it's been less on the business, but it has been more challenging and taxing, I think, from a leadership perspective. But I think by and large, we're getting through it. I think Hong Kong's a resilient city. I've lived in many places in my life, and no one takes a punch and bounces back, better than Hong Kong.
So any tips for other CEOs, etc., on how they can handle it? You yourself have kids. How have you been handling working from home and managing to lead a team of 50 plus?
Yeah, it isn't easy. There's no question about it. I think my advice to other founders, and especially companies that I think are in an earlier stage than ours, this is going to be, I think, devastating to a lot of companies. A lot of them won't make it. I guess as it is, 90% of startups won't make it. This is going to accelerate that. But I think by going through this experience, maybe their next company, will be stronger and better off because of it. But I do think it's going to be a really difficult time for most founders, those that do have, runway ahead of them. I think that it's important you make the tough choices. If that means cost cutting, if it means, reducing the number of products you have and focusing on core, you have to make these tough decisions and you have to make them now.
Okay. And lastly is, in this tough times, you have a lot of things that are going difficult for people, and both employers and employees globally. Is there something that you would like to offer, be it mentor hours, internship, or any other support, both to students? We are running an internship program as MEDICI and FinStep Asia for students globally to remote internship, but we would love to know if there are anything you'd like to offer both. I know you're a mentor for FT Slingshot program as well, which we're running, but it would be great to see what you could offer to the community as a whole.
Yeah, so we actually have 3 interns coming on board this summer. Now, what that's going to look like, I'm not sure. It'll all sort of depend on where we are with work from home and the situation. But we have 3 interns coming on. We're certainly, open to having more across functions. I think it's an opportunity for people to learn, and as difficult as this environment is, being an intern and being able to see this firsthand and how businesses cope with it, I think will have sort of, lifetime value for people.
I also want to add it on a positive note. It is said that a lot of successful companies and startups began in the time of crisis. Example, WhatsApp started in 2009, Cloudera, Slack, Square. A lot of these companies started in 2008, 2009. You think, are we going to see something like that again, around this time?
I think so. I think it's inevitable. People, I've been asked before, if you were to start a business today, what business would you start? And my advice is, it's the product is less important than delivering 3 things really, simplicity, convenience, and affordability. And if you can find a niche or a space where you're able to provide that to your customer, be it a B2B customer or a consumer customer, you really have a chance. So I suspect what will come out of this is startups will come out of this, the ones that survive it, stronger. Those that are starting in this environment will naturally have to be leaner. Capital won't be as available as it once was. So yeah, I think it's inevitable that there is a bright side to this, and that is a lot of companies will come out stronger because of it.
Thanks, Mikaal. Thank you so much for your time. We are doing this video series so that a lot of founders and leaders in different companies could actually learn, how some of the leaders are actually, sort of coming up with their response, how they're dealing with the crisis. So thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.